This woman here, Allison Jenkins, who's a, a licensed professional counselor, and also the clinical coordinator of Lenape Valley Foundation. Whenever you see somebody taking jobs like clinical coordinator, these are people with a chip on their shoulder. When you see people that are licensed professional counselors, a lot of times you see people that have a chip on their shoulder too. But the point is, this is the woman at Lenape Valley Foundation that decided it would be a genius idea to Google me and then go with it, whatever she found online, just go with it and assume that I'm guilty of the things that people are accusing me of online, because of course that's brilliant. That makes sense, right? That everything online is true. So I just wanted to point this out. This is the type of intelligence that you're dealing with at Lenape Valley Foundation. This is a close-up of what she looks like. Now, to me, she seems like somebody that's an aging pretty girl. She's somebody that got away with whatever she could in life because she's moderately attractive, and people let her get away with crap left and right, and never called her out on her bullshit. I call everyone out on their bullshit. I have given this organization months to correct the problem. So what happened was, after she Googled me, she found a video. Then, according to her account, but of course it wasn't her account toward me, because she didn't like that I confronted her on her bullshit. According to her account, she found this video on YouTube, circulated it amongst the staff at Lenape Valley Foundation, and yeah, that's about it. And then, after the weekend, had my therapist confront me to make sure I was safe, and asked me if I would get a psychiatric evaluation, which had no bearing at all on me receiving therapy from this organization. Okay? No bearing whatsoever. And what it was is, it was obvious to me, having dealt with mental health, having worked in mental health, what they were trying to do was find grounds to 302 me because they felt that I was a danger to society based on the nonsense online. After I attempted to reason with my therapist then stated that Allison would like to see the emails in which I was alleging I was being threatened, quote, in heavy quotations, alleging I was being harassed and alleging I was being threatened. At which point I gave them to these people, not all of them, because I don't know that my therapist and this woman aren't actually working with the people that are harassing me. I don't know that they weren't asking for those emails to see exactly what evidence I have against Gay Wave, against Fat Ma'am, against these people, okay? So I didn't give them all of my emails because that would be foolish, okay? So what happened was, after they reviewed the emails, the thousands upon thousands of emails I sent them, and the videos on YouTube that I sent them links to, where I'm being openly threatened. People had threatened to forcibly gain carnal knowledge of me and murder me and doxed me and these things, and I put, I explained, I've been reporting these things to the police. After all that, oh, what do you know? They agree, oh, you're being threatened. We're just going to not even apologize about this. Not even apologize about this, and just pretend like it never happened because you caught us on our bullshit. Okay? That's basically what happened. So months go by. They've never let me see the video that was circulated amongst the staff at this organization. Never. I don't know what the video was. I don't know what the video alleged. I don't know how ridiculous the video was. I don't know if the video looked like it was serious. I have no idea what that video was. Now, there's only a couple reasons that they wouldn't let me see that video. Either they're embarrassed because it's that freaking ridiculous, or they're in on it with the people that are harassing me. It's that simple. Okay? It's that simple. So, this woman here either has the brain power of a fruit fly, or she's working with the people that are harassing me. Moving on. As I said, I've tried diligently. I've tried very diligently to work this out with this organization quietly and privately. Just because it doesn't make sense to be doing this, but they've given me no choice but to blast them online like this. So, yeah, it's Lenape Valley Foundation. Now, what was her name? Now, I don't know if these two folks are related. It's a somewhat common name. But if you'll remember, her name was what? Jenkins. All right. So, you'll notice under donors that there is indeed a Ms. Tammy Jenkins. I don't know if this person's related to the other Jenkins. Could be, might not be, might explain why there was no action taken against her for such a grievous and idiotic mistake. Might that there's a donor with the same last name as her. Might explain that. Might also explain why she has the job that she has with the lack of credentials that she has. Moving on. Far too many people like to support something called NAMI, the National Alliance for Mental Illness, or National Alliance for the Mentally Ill. Okay, well, the thing is with NAMI, NAMI is a pharmaceutical front group meant to normalize symptomatic behavior. They like to call it destigmatization. And I'm all for destigmatization as somebody that's been horribly stigmatized and horribly had my rights violated due to stigmatization by mental health professionals, as I just showed. But the thing is, what you have to keep in mind, there are symptoms. There are very real symptoms, such as very bad symptoms with mental illness that result in very bad outcomes, such as suicide and things of that nature. So what NAMI does is they normalize these bad behaviors, okay? And what this does, and they normalize it, they try to normalize this at an early age so that people are not only getting saturated with powerful pharmaceuticals, which a lot of times are exasperating the symptoms or causing new symptoms and new health problems, but they are also normalizing the behavior. This is one of the ways that the whole trans movement has become so ridiculously normalized amongst youth. In fact, while I was going to this organization for therapy, I was in a program where there was a trans boy, and to be honest, they were pre-transition. It was very sad. The girl was not unattractive, but they were transitioning to become a boy at a very early age. You're talking early 20s, okay? And it was just very sad. And of course, in proper context, they allowed this person to dominate the group and things of that nature. Years prior to that, I was in group therapy at this place, and you had an elder homosexual from San Francisco that was, you know, babbling on, and of course they always allow the homosexuals to dominate the conversations, because, remember, the enemy to Western civilization, according to these people, is what? Heteronormative white men. But what is Teen Screen? Well, Teen Screen is dangerous as hell, and it was supported by NAMI, and I'm going to get into what Teen Screen is right now.
A controversial psychiatric evaluation is being discussed tonight at the Fresno Unified School Board meeting. Opponents say it supports the drugging of America.
Not all parents think the program is working.
In fact, some told the Fresno Unified School Board tonight they think it is dangerous.
How would you feel if your child was screened for suicidal thoughts? The Pinellas County School Board took up that controversial issue today in a standing room only chambers.
They say that Teen Screen is an unscientific psychological evaluation for teen suicide. Opponents also say that it's funded by the big pharmaceutical companies.
Keep them safe. Don't let the psychiatrist take them away. Hide the children before it's too late, because they only want to drug them.
Now, I want to be clear. NAMI is heavily celebrated by every mental health agency and the county in Bucks County. And that needs to be known. That needs to be known, because they are not good people.
Actually, an opportunity that came to me while I was still at NAMI. I was one of a couple of people invited to add some remarks to his speech. We put into this speech, and it survived the edit process.
This shows their control over politicians as high up as President George W. Bush. This is showing a NAMI tote bag and who's funding NAMI right there. Now, do you think they fund NAMI out of the goodness of their hearts? Or do you think they're funding NAMI for particular reasons, such as the ability to impress upon politicians like George W. Bush certain ideas that then become laws?
A line that candidate Bush spoke, and if I'm elected, I will convene a commission to look at why our public sector and our mental health system are not able to do the job our citizens deserve, or some such. Anyway, he said, I'm having a commission. We had him on the record. Once he was elected, it took a while. A lot of reminders had to come to him that he had said this. We had to keep pushing.
I am honored to announce what we call the new Freedom Commission on Mental Health.
Now ask yourself, how well has this worked? Remember, with deaths of despair, which is mostly an economic situation, suicides and self-destructive behaviors related to addiction are at an all-time high. So high that there was a whole study done and a book written about the study called Deaths of Despair by Deaton and Case. Okay, so obviously screening the whole country for mental illness and treating the mental illness in the same ineffective ways that have been being done for years, it doesn't work, does it? If it did, wouldn't you see a drop in suicide, a drop in self-destructive addiction-related and other behaviors that are literally killing our population, in particular heterosexual white men who are still being demonized by the mental health sector? And let's go on.
Well, parents speak out tonight against universal mental health screening.
There's nothing in the Constitution or in any statute, really, that says that the government has the right to
to look into a person's mental health.
Each child that goes through this process is going to end up with a label. That label will be carried around in their emotional data bank the rest of their lives.
And she demonstrated the computer program that asks kids a sequence of questions like these.
Have you often felt very nervous when you've had to do things in front of people? For this question, I want to know if you have ever had a sudden attack of feeling very afraid.
This is a program that has some very vocal critics. They say Teen Screen usurps parental authority, sends kids to therapy who might not need it, and they say the program encourages families to put adolescents on antidepressant drugs.
The Rutherford
Now, mind you, once these children have been stigmatized, I know this because I've been receiving mental health treatment off and on since I was 7 years old. It's very damaging to your sense of self, your sense of self-worth, who you are as an individual. I've done better than most at withstanding the pressures to accept the labels put on me and things of that nature. But that's what this is. This is about the normalization of bad behavior, of antisocial behavior, of bizarre behavior. And after it's normalized, the drugging of people, not only to get the perfect zombified population, but also in order to make trillions of dollars.
A civil liberties group in Virginia has filed a lawsuit against the district on behalf of a Penn High School family. The suit goes back to Teen Screen, a mental health screening given last year.
Both federal law and Indiana state law require written consent from parents before these kind of tests can be administered to their children.
I am very uncomfortable and will not do business with an organization that has gone to Congress and told us something that's not true.
One of the questions asked is, have you often felt very nervous when you had to do things in front of people?
I'm 43 years old, and I'm nervous in front of every one of you today, but that doesn't make me mentally ill.
Promises of pizza or movies just to go through this.
Now keep that in mind. They would throw pizza parties and have movies as a reward to... This is literally like giving candy to children. This is literally what my generation was warned about. Okay, this is what my generation was warned about during the 1980s stranger danger craze.
Teen Screen process, which then involves possibly drugging of these children.
Oh, no, not possibly. Absolutely involves drugging these children.
Well, tonight the Pinella School Board has decided against a policy change that could allow students to be screened for suicidal tendencies. About 100 opponents of the screening attended a school board workshop today. Hundreds more sent emails. Many said that Teen Screen, as it's called, it's a questionnaire, is intrusive.
On the Teen Screen's website, Kenosha's name is listed as going to be implementing this program. They had
not over my dead body.
Yeah, no one is giving my child a mental physical. That is what he referred to it as.
Mental physical.
I wouldn't expect them to give my kid a physical, so now I want you to give them a mental physical? No, that's my job, my responsibility. Stop trying to take it away from me.
Some parents choose to get help from a psychiatrist and usually leave the office with a drug prescription. That's where the program draws criticism.
I know, as a very personal, heartfelt truth, how dangerous these drugs are.
He advised that I go to a psychiatrist and that he was probably going to need medication. But at no point did they say, take him into your medical doctor. And I ended up doing that.
What you'll notice about mental health practitioners, whether they're therapists or whatever, they don't like doctors. The reason they don't like doctors is doctors practice medicine. They don't like when you go to the cardiologist. They don't like when things like that are happening, when you're actually getting treated for things. For example, my autonomic dysfunction, which I was erroneously told was panic disorder and things like that for years, is finally being treated in somewhat of an effective manner by my cardiologist. No, they don't like that. They want you to receive a psychiatric evaluation. They want you to get on these psychiatric medications. Mind you, my autonomic dysfunction, according to my cardiologist, was caused by the psychiatric medication that was prescribed by the agency that I'm talking about in this video.
Turned out he had allergies, and when we got those under control, then the behavior was fine.
The inventor of a very controversial...
Listen to that.
These drugs are. He advised that I go to a psychiatrist and that he was...
What I want you to pay attention to is listen to what happened. They took this kid to the family doctor, the medical doctor, and the kid had allergies. When they got the allergies under control, the child's behavior, what? Normalized. If you study criminal justice, I remember when I was studying criminal justice, I had a class in juvenile justice. They took children off refined carbohydrates, simple sugars and simple flours, and they found 100% improvement and an 80-something% cure rate in thousands of children that had ADHD. It was not a small study, okay? 100% improvement and a very high cure rate in the attention deficit hyperactivity disorder symptoms.
Probably going to need medication, but at no point did they say, you know, take him into your medical doctor. And I ended up doing that, and it turned out he had allergies, and when we got those under control, then the behavior was fine.
The inventor of a very controversial suicide screening program called Teen Screen is a recent study by Schaefer that says that kids who took their own lives were 15 times more likely to have been on antidepressants.
We have a power.
Keep that in mind. That's something very important to understand. There was recently a woman that had, sadly, I forget her name off the top of my head. She sadly murdered her, I believe it was 2 daughters, with exercise bands and threw herself out a window and is now a paraplegic. But this is due, most likely, to the medications that were thrown at her as opposed to getting her proper mental health treatment. And the sad truth is, we don't really know what proper mental health treatment is because it's never really been explored. So let's go on.
Were 15 times more likely to have been on...
15 times more likely to have been on antidepressant medications. You're more like, they were 15 times more likely to kill themselves if they had been on antidepressant medications than if they hadn't been. And as somebody that survived, these drugs as a youth, I can say they made me violent. They made me unable to control myself. It's like being a zombie. It's like having a lack of control of your emotions. Well, actually, you don't have emotions, but you can't control mood swings and things of that nature. When you're on these drugs that are allegedly mood stabilizers and things like that, they make you far more dangerous than you would be otherwise, cause health problems. I luckily did not get diabetes or anything like that, but unfortunately I got autonomic dysfunction, which has to be treated by a cardiologist.
The inventor of a very controversial suicide screening program called Teen Screen is a recent study by Schaefer that says that kids who took their own lives were 15 times more likely to have been on antidepressants.
We have a power-packed program for you here today. I don't make this stuff up, folks. This is taking place across the nation. To help us unravel it, Alan Jones is a governmental whistleblower. What's the real story?
I believe that the real story is that Teen Screen is a pharmaceutical industry-backed and sponsored effort to recruit our children into biological psychiatry.
Most board members said Teen Screen has too many potential problems. Hillsborough school officials have also decided not to use Teen Screen.
It's so utterly ridiculous to me to allow this into an education system. I just urge every person listening out there, this involves you. It involves your children. So it involves your future. Whether you even have children or not, you know somebody who does, you have to employ them later on, you have to work with them. This country is going to be run by those kids. If you do nothing else, at least sign the petition online. Someone has to
keep that in mind. This country will be run by those kids. It's been about that long. Do you see the direction the country's going in? Do you see the nonsense with the microaggressions and the 80,000 genders and all this nonsense? Where the hell do you think that came from?
Speak for these children. Did you know 85% of the testing done with Teen Screen produces false positives?
We do not believe that the government should mandate the mental health testing of children.
We're talking with Michael Hogan from the Ohio Department of Mental Health. He is the director. I feel compelled to ask you about the National Advisory Board for Teen Screen. There have been many questions about their connections to pharmaceutical companies. What do you say to those questions?
And I serve on that advisory board myself. There's probably some doctors who work with them who might have done research studies for drug companies.
Parents we talked with are uneasy about this kind of survey.
I would not have my child take that test, no. Because it can label your kids or set them in a category that they don't belong in.
Coast to coast, you're listening to Phyllis Schlafly Live.
Another conflict of interest is the schools get more money when they have more children who have some labeled as some kind of disability on these drugs. We don't want some high percentage of our children being labeled mentally ill.
So think about that. That gives the school an incentive to get more of the children attending that school diagnosed with this or that issue so that they can get more money to have students that are ineffective in life because they're heavily drugged on these so-called medications.
And put on drugs when they're not.
You know, teenagers, they can say one thing just to draw attention. So I'm not sure if I would like my kids taking those kind of surveys.
Talk about an invasion of privacy.
Who's really benefiting? It's really the pharmaceutical industry and the psychiatric industry.
A lot of people in this country that don't know about this yet.
And what better way to have the pharmaceutical industry tap into that and have, a link to potential customers?
What are we going to have? Children drugged up?
I didn't realize until just recently, and this all has to do with mental health. Let's take the Illinois state legislatures. Where do these people come from? How many of them think that they want themselves to be to go to a psychiatrist and be psychoanalyzed?
But they are being duped.
Well, sure they are, but how dumb can they be?
We're going to win over this thing, or
we are going to win. I do not plan on losing this fight. I do not plan on losing my freedom and the future of my children. It's simply a matter of speaking out and saying no.
Would like to take a petition with at least 10,000 signatures.
Meanwhile, an online petition is circulating to ban the program nationally. It's already racked up more than 11,000 signatures.
Our last speaker is Alan Schaefer.
I'm also here to address the teen screen issue.
Our last speaker is Alan Schaefer.
I'm also here to address the teen screen issue. I represent an organization that primarily acts on behalf of the 8 million non-government school children. The reason that I would be speaking out at a school board meeting is very simple. The trajectory of this mechanism is to encompass all school-age children. Back in 2003, I believe it was, President Bush signed into law a universal mental health screening legislation. And this is essentially a response to that legislation. I would like to warn anyone that I can of the danger of allowing this to proceed in any school, because it will eventually encompass all school children and all people who deal with school children. There are a number of other issues that relate to this, but I'd like to just highlight a couple. If this were a private venture and were subject to the scrutinies of organizations, watchdog organizations over profit-making ventures, they would be shut down in a heartbeat by the likes of the FDA or the Better Business Bureau, or for that matter, the FCC. It is not subject to the same standards that a consumer entity is, and this is a desperate disaster. In addition to the fact that that it is held to a different standard, I would like to visit one other very important element for children in development, and that is the label. Each child that goes through this process is going to end up with a label. That label will be carried around in their emotional data bank the rest of their lives. I know this because I was labeled a dyslexic. And I can tell you from extensive research and personal experience that that label was a stigma I did not require in order to be a...
Now, people that don't understand this should research the concepts defined in self-image psychology, which is a form of psychology created by the plastic surgeon Maxwell Maltz. I strongly recommend people read the book Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz so they can learn a little bit about self-image psychology. Moving on.
Successful person. The label not only is carried around emotionally, but this is an extensive tracking system over which the government...
Also keep in mind, it's not just a label. You are basically poisoned. You have to understand, drugs work by inhibiting certain aspects, certain pathways, certain chemical pathways and whatnot of the human physiology. Okay? So you have to understand, putting powerful drugs, okay, into a developing child is probably not the best thing you can be doing for somebody's brain at that age. You wouldn't give your child cigarettes. You wouldn't give your child alcohol. You wouldn't give your child amphetamines. Oh, wait, but did you know that ADHD medication is what? Amphetamines. Okay? Do you think developing children should be on crank? Well, if you're giving your child Ritalin, or if you're giving your child Adderall, you are indeed giving your child essentially crank. Most parents wouldn't give their kids a cup of coffee.
Have free reign to be able to know who was diagnosed with what, when, what they were given for it, what results occurred. They'll be able to track this. And I think this is a desperate evil.
Actually, consider that. Would you give a 6-year-old a 24-ounce cup of coffee? I would hope not. However, many 6-year-olds in the United States are on Ritalin. Many 6-year-olds are on Adderall. Many 6-year-olds are on other medications, mood stabilizers, antipsychotics, antidepressants, etc. These things are far more potent than a cup of coffee. Would you give your child nicotine? Would you let your child smoke a cigarette? Would you let your child dip tobacco or chew tobacco? No. However, a lot of these these medicines, these stimulant medicines, do similar things to nicotine. So much so that people that are interested in the use of nootropics, which are smart drugs, utilize nicotine gum and nicotine patches to improve focus. And what's funny is nicotine gum and nicotine patches, now remind you, I'm not a doctor, okay? I'm not an MD, I'm not a DO, I'm not an ND, I'm not a chiropractor, I'm not a nurse, I'm not an LPN, I'm not a CNA, I'm not an RN, I'm not a nurse practitioner, I'm not a dietitian, I'm not a nutritionist, but what it seems is the people that are utilizing things like nicotine patches and nicotine gum aren't having the horrific side effects, sleeplessness, jitteriness, etc., that people have when they're prescribed things like Adderall.
That is usurping parental responsibility and control over the formation of their own children. The last thing I'd like to say is it's not an educational issue. This is outside of the charter of what a government...
And that's what you need to understand. Your mental health and physical health, not an educational issue. Although, this is what I find funny, if you want kids paying attention in school, why aren't you looking at what the hell they're eating? Why aren't you kicking the soft drink companies and the fast food and the fast food chains and all this shit? Why aren't you kicking that the hell out of school so kids are on nutritious diets that we know damn well promote better concentration, better mental health, and better physical health? Why don't you see that happening? Okay? Do you even see kids being educated in proper nutrition anymore? What is health class anymore? Health class has been usurped by touchy-go-feely, weird, gender-neutral nonsense, and what has been the biological reality of this is what you eat to be healthy, and this is what you do to be healthy, and this is this, and that is that, and these are STDs, and this is why you shouldn't have premarital sex because you're at a higher risk of STDs, etc. That's not covered anymore. Okay, so they want to drug the kids because the kids have these behavioral issues, probably due to a lack of proper consumption of proper things like proper nutrients in their diet, or a lack of proper nutrients in their diet, okay, or too much refined carbohydrates in their diet, or what have you, or maybe they have allergies, or maybe they have medical conditions that aren't being properly diagnosed, like hypoglycemia or hyperglycemia. Maybe they have autonomic dysfunction, like I have, because they were given a drug that caused it.
What school is supposed to do, which is to combat ignorance with an understanding of how to acquire an education. And while this may be a solution for a problem that is perceived within the system, that problem, the answer that the system generally gives is well, give us more free reign with the child, and we can do a better job and produce a better citizen. But we've had generations of their parents and their grandparents.
And this is the problem that you have. You have generation upon generation upon generation, but more recently where you've seen these people have free reign over the children, which was my generation and the generation after that generation especially, you have, like, just look at the trajectory of the country. Look at the military, look at everything. It's all wackadoodly. It's insane. You know? You have gender dysphoria being normalized and propped up more so than reading, writing, and math in the public school system. There's no education really taking place anymore. Everything's subjective. It's about feelings. 2 plus 2 doesn't have to equal 4 anymore. Okay? It's bizarre.
And this is the result. And what happens is more and more of the authority is usurped by the school from the parent, and their responsibility diminishes, and the school adopts more responsibility. This has gone beyond education and is now manifested in this non-educational issue, and it will touch the lives of...
Now keep in mind, this predates the current situation. This was the precursor of this. This is the kind of things I was yelling about in meetings, in county meetings and whatnot, when I was working in mental health, and everybody told me I was crazy.
It's now manifested in this non-educational issue, and it will touch the lives of non-government school children, and so I'm very concerned that we stop it when we have the chance to speak out in small meeting before it's nationwide. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And let me just announce that this particular matter is being referred to Pete Summers of our Prevention and Intervention, along with the Assistant Superintendent over our high schools, John Marinovich, for a response and follow-up. Thank you.
Now, what you need to understand about the county I live in is that the mental health and the county are very intermeshed with one another. So these are the county commissioners. These are the people that basically run the county. Now, I personally emailed every one of these: Bob Harvey, Diane Marseglia, and Jean DiGirolamo. Not only about the situation I've had recently, but about the situation I had previously with that, where I was illegally drugged and erroneously 302'd, and the 302 was thrown out by the place I was sent to, again, by the same organization. Okay? So what I want to point out, these people are elected like every 4 years. They're all useless. They should not be reelected. They're useless, and they support the status quo. And the status quo is detrimental to the citizenry of Bucks County and promotes the violation of Bucks County citizens' human rights and constitutional rights. Moving. So I wanted to go over some of the people that were consulted by Ms. Jenkins. Okay, so this is the chief executive officer. Didn't help me at all. This is the privacy officer, which was consulted by Ms. Jenkins, who claims that she did not contact anybody outside of Lenape with the false information she garnered by Googling me and finding false information online, which she mistook for real information. However, she consulted the privacy officer, this is her supervisor, meaning Ms. Jenkins' supervisor, Ms. Lamont. Now, Ms. Lamont may have certain other reasons with some of the stuff about me online to maybe seek action against me. You can use your imagination to think what that might be. I mean, I don't know. What do you think? Let's open this image here. You know, let's see. Maybe she might have seen some things that I may have said online that she thought might have been offensive. And maybe she thought she should take action against me. Maybe. I don't know. Okay? But my point is that all of these people are useless. I've done everything in my power to rectify this in a peaceful, logical, reasonable way. There is a limit to what you can talk out with people. When the people refuse to talk out things with you, refuse to give you the information that they're withholding from you, and refuse to even apologize to you for their literally negligent behavior. I mean, I don't know what else to say. The type of behavior... Now, mind you, prior to this happening, and them making me prove I was being harassed, okay, making me prove I was being threatened, I had just been released a couple months earlier from a place that this same organization sent me to. They claimed I was having psychotic delusions, when it was proven I was not having psychotic delusions by the attending psychiatrist at the place they sent me to, for the same reason. They said that I wasn't being harassed, I wasn't being threatened, and I was having psychotic delusions. So this organization, the crisis unit, who's headed by this gentleman, tried to 302 me. The 302 didn't stick because the attending psychiatrist threw it the hell out, but tried to have me 302'd because they claimed I was having psychotic delusions. So the psychiatrist Googled me and said, no, you're not having psychotic delusions. Here you're being threatened. Here you're being harassed. People are making up shit about you. This is obviously not a case of psychosis, but because you're depressed and because you're, you know, in a bad state of mind, we'd like to keep you if you would like to stay. So I agreed to stay for my own well-being at the request of the doctor. I was not 302'd, despite this organization attempting to 302 me based again on their denial of this. Months later, I was told to prove, yet again, that I was being harassed and threatened. Now, mind you, I've been telling this place for 4 years I've been being harassed and threatened. Okay? And they've put it down as delusions. Okay? Regardless of the fact that the police agree with me, regardless of the fact that a psychiatrist at a place they sent me to agrees with me, no, that doesn't matter. All that matters is that they push their agenda, which, for whatever reason, seems to be against me. Whether or not they're working with the people that are harassing me, I don't know. And that's all for this video.